Hey guys, today we're making a giant gummy Coca-Cola bottle that weighs a massive 595 pounds. To get everything right, we first need to study the original. Inside the original packaging, you'll notice a ton of tiny gummy Coke bottles. And for their size, the level of detail is actually really impressive. There are also larger versions of gummy Coke bottles available on the market, but we're going way beyond that. We're making a bottle almost as tall as I am, completely edible, and something you literally can't buy anywhere in the world. We'll start by tasting the real one to fully understand its flavor, down to every nuance. It's a super rich, well-balanced taste, and most of the flavor clearly comes from the Coke aroma. Naturally, you'd think to use real Coca-Cola for the flavor, but after tons of experiments, I found out that doesn't work. When you turn Coke into gummy, it loses about 90% of its flavor intensity. So instead, we'll be making our own Coca-Cola flavoring from scratch. Of course, the actual flavor formula is a closely guarded secret, but if you really take a deep sniff of a Coke bottle, you'll notice this is definitely a citrus drink. So, to recreate that, we're gonna need a whole crate of limes and lemons, and a separate crate of oranges. Here's the interesting part. We're not using the pulp at all, there's barely any aroma in it. The real scent lives in the essential oils found in the pills. These oils get released from tiny oil glands when you press the skin. But before we start peeling, we need to thoroughly clean the fruit. We toss them all in the sink. No soap, just a good scrub under warm water. Once clean, we move them into some big containers. Now it's time to peel. We use a vegetable peeler to carefully strip out the skin. This is hands down the best method to get the most fragrant part of the zest, without grabbing any of the bitter white teeth underneath. We keep the zest and discard the rest of the fruit. We don't need the flesh. We repeat the same process with the lemons. After working through all the citrus, we're left with a big pile of zest. But to extract essential oils effectively, we need to break the zest down even further. For that, we use a cutter blender. We toss in the first batch. Seal the lid and blend for a full minute. What we get is a medium fine texture. And the smell? It just exploded. It's easily 10 times stronger now. We dump the shredded zest in the enlarge jar. Repeat the process until we blended all the citrus peels. Done. But we've still got two limes to deal with. Since they're smaller, it's easier to zest them with a grater. We make a single pass over each area, so we don't hit the bitter white layer. We want just a vibrant green outer zest. We keep going until the limes are completely bare. "20 minutes later, all the lime zest goes into the jar. Next ingredient for our Coca-Cola flavoring, kaffir lime leaves. These have a deeper herbaceous citrus scent that complements everything we've added. We toss them into the jar too. Now let's talk spices, and this is probably the most important part. The key spice in Coca-Cola's aroma, cinnamon. We grab 4 whole sticks. Next up is coriander. And crush them in a mortar and pestle to break them into smaller pieces. Then we grind them to get these oils out. In they go. Now come another essential element, nutmeg. It has to be whole nutmeg, no pre-ground stuff here. We grate 3 full nuts on the finest grater we have. Since essential oils are super volatile, using freshly ground spices is a must. Everything goes into the jar. At this point, we've got the all main components of Coca-Cola's signature aroma. But now we need to unify everything into one flavor base. That's where food-grade glycerin comes in. It's the perfect solvent for essential oils. We open the bottle and pour the whole thing into the jar. Then we stir thoroughly, so the glycerin fully coats every ingredient, making sure the extraction process is as efficient as possible. Once mixed, we seal the jar tight to trap all those volatile oils inside. This is going to steep for a full 7 days. Now let's move to something else that's labeled on Coke bottles as aroma of caffeine. But let's be real, that's just a marketing trick. In reality, Coca-Cola contains pure caffeine, which doesn't have any smell. It's added to give the drink a bitter aftertaste and its signature energy boost. We're going to extract pure caffeine ourselves from ground guarana seeds. These contain about 7% caffeine. That's 3 times more than what you'll find in coffee beans. We open the pack and pour the powder into a clean jar. To extract the caffeine, we'll use food-grade alcohol. We pour it in. Mix it well, making sure the guarana powder is fully saturated. Then we seal the jar and leave it to steep for 24 hours. After a full day, the alcohol has pulled almost all the caffeine and bitterness out of the guarana. But to get rid of that bitterness, we're using activated charcoal. We add 4 tablets directly into the jar. And stir. Then we let it sit for 2 hours. During this time, the charcoal acts like a sponge, absorbing the unwanted bitterness. Once that's done, we filter everything through a coffee filter. It's slow, painfully slow, but it catches even the tiniest particles. After about 30 minutes of filtering, we've got ourselves a dark concentrated caffeine extract. Now we need to remove the alcohol, so we pour the liquid into the saucepan. And gently simmer it until the alcohol evaporates. What we're left with is a thick paste. We scrape it out onto parchment paper, and that's our pure caffeine extract. This amount is more than enough for a huge batch of gummy Coke. It'll harden as it cools, and we'll save it for later. Now back to our flavor extract. It's only been a little over a day since we started the infusion, so we need to stir it again to help release more aroma. We'll repeat this every day for the next 6 days. While our flavoring is steeping, we'll start working on the mold where we'll pour the gummy mix. As a reference, we're gonna use this gummy. We head over to the computer to build a 3D model that will later turn into a mold. 4 hours later, we have a perfect digital replica of the gummy bottle. But we replace the label text with a real Coca-Cola logo. We save the file to a flash drive. Grab it. And go to the workshop. We're visiting a friend's home workshop. He has the exact machine we need, a CNC router. For the positive mold, we're using the extruded polystyrene foam. It's lightweight, cheap and less porous than foam plastic. One sheet of foam isn't long enough for our mold, so we glue 2 together using expanding foam adhesive. We coat the entire surface. Press the layers together and weight it all down to keep it tight. Then we fill any small gaps with more foam and let it dry for an hour. After that, we remove the excess with a towel. And cover the top with a sheet of plywood, screwing it in place. The block is ready. Let's get clamped onto the CNC table using special mounts. We plug the flash drive into the CNC computer. The operator splits our 3D model into the 3 separate sections. First, the largest bit carves down the higher, so the pieces can fit together like a puzzle. This step creates a mountain of foam shavings, which we vacuum away with a huge industrial vacuum cleaner. Then we swap the medium-sized bit. It cuts the actual bottle shape out of the foam block. Once that's done, we remove the surrounding frame. Last comes the fine bit, the most precise one. It's got a narrow tip that handles all the fine details, carving the mold to exact specs from the 3D model. This part takes a long time. Just this one section takes 5 hours. There's just one piece done, 2 more to go. The CNC machine runs non-stop for 2 full days. Finally, the last piece is ready, and we can start assembling the mold. We apply adhesive foam to the bottom layer. Then press the second layer on top, making sure the glue spreads across the entire surface. Then we do the same with the third and final layer. We clamp the whole thing down for an hour. After the glue sets, we're left with a big foam Coca-Cola bottle, an exact copy of our 3D model. But it's not perfect just yet. We trim off any glue that overflowed. Right now the surface of the mold is way too crumbly, and it's just not gonna work. So we sand the whole surface to smooth out the texture. Blow off the dust. And get to the next step, puttying. We fill all the seams and imperfections with putty. Then sand again. We apply a second coat. Sand it again. And finally seal the surface with water-based lacquer. One last sanding. Then we dust it off completely. 3 days later, the mold master is finally ready. Time to head back to the kitchen. We've got our mold master, but now we need to turn it into a functional mold that can actually hold hot liquid gummy. So we lay the foam model on top of an OSB board, wrapped in food-grade plastic wrap. Next step, pour in the silicone. But before we do that, we need to make absolutely sure the silicone won't stick to the mold. For that, I bought a special mold release agent. We opened 2 bottles. Pour them into a spray container. Attach the sprayer. And coat the entire surface on the mold. Especially the Coca-Cola logo, which is the most textured area. Once that's done, it's time to mix the silicone. The first component is the silicone base. We weighed out exactly 6 pounds 9.8 ounces. The second component is the hardener. Just 3.2 ounces. We mix the two using a drill with a dog hook attachment. And stir for a full 10 minutes. The silicone thickens as it activates. Now it's ready to pour. We pour it carefully and evenly over the mold, trying to get as much silicone as possible on the mold itself and not waste it on the board. Then we spread it using a roller to make sure it reaches every detail. Wherever covered is thin, we add more silicone. I calculated the batch so it will cover the mold perfectly in one solid layer. To speed up curing, we turn on the heater. After 8 hours, the silicone is fully cured. But we still need more layers. Before moving on, I want to protect the Coca-Cola logo, because the next layer will be plaster, and I need the layers to separate cleanly. To make the logo surface less textured, I cover it with a layer of gauze. Let's continue. I do the same for the texture cup area on top of the bottle. Over the course of 2 days, we applied 2 full cans of silicone to the mold. That part's done. As I mentioned earlier, the next layer is plaster. To reinforce it, we'll use strips of gauze. We unfold the roll and cut it into manageable sections. We'll need a lot of them. Now to the plaster. We open the bag. Scoop out the powder. And slowly add it to water while constantly stirring with a construction mixer. The plaster mix is ready. We take the gas strips, fully soak them in the plaster mixture. And start applying them over the silicone. We do this for 3 full layers. The plaster hardens quickly. Next, we need to build a rigid outer box, the shell mold. We screw everything together using screws. The shell is ready. Now we need to fill in all the empty space inside the box to ensure the mold can support the weight of all that gummy. The simplest solution: expanding foam. We attach the foam gun to the canister and start filling the mold. We leave some room at the top because the foam will expand as it cures. Then we wait a full day. Next day I come back and the foam looks solid. But on one side, one weird coral growths have formed. We use a saw to cut them off. But the blade starts getting stuck. That's odd. Let's check the inside. Yep, still soft. Turns out this much foam needs more time to cure. We wait another full day. Finally, the foam is solid all the way through. We continue from where we left off, trimming the foam down to match the edge of the shell walls. Now we can seal it with a lid. Because the expanding foam pushes the walls outward, we'll clamp the base tightly all the way around. Once it's secure, we flip the whole mold over to the other side. We unscrew all the fasteners, remove the corner supports. And lift off the lid. Now we can finally take out the silicone mold. At the bottom there's a sturdy plaster and foam base, strong enough to support a huge weight of liquid gummy. Looks like everything's going according to plan. Now we remove the silicone mold from the foam master, since this is where the gummy will go. Thanks to the mold release spray, it peels off cleanly and perfectly. And I gotta say, it captured every detail flawlessly. The Coca-Cola logo, the ridges, the even texture on the cap, they all transferred beautifully. To make sure nothing leaks during the pour, we line the inside of the shell with plastic wrap. And place the silicone mold back inside. It feels like a glove. Some silicone spilled under the original mold, creating bits we don't need, so we snip those off with scissors. Before pouring in the actual gummy, we give the mold a deep clean with dish soap to make sure it's food safe. Now back to our flavor extract. It's been steeping for 7 full days. Let's check the aroma. And yeah, this really smells like Coca-Cola. I'd say it's about 80% there. To separate the pure flavor, we strain the entire content through cheesecloth. We gather the corners of the cheesecloth and start squeezing out the glycerin packed with essential oils. I pressed for a long time, because every drop of this homemade flavoring is gold. Done. We pour the filtered extract into a measuring cup. That's a whole bunch of strong Coca-Cola flavor ready to go. Now it's finally time to make the gummy itself. The original candy has 2 colors, so we'll need 2 burners. We set a regular pot over the first burner for the light mix. And for the dark mix, we're using a massive cauldron that can handle a much larger batch. But how do we make the gummy stretch like the real thing? That signature texture comes from glucose syrup. It's the main ingredient in real gummy candy. We bought a ton of it. We unpacked the big box and put the first bag of glucose straight into the pot. We squeeze out the rest by hand. Then we add smaller buckets of syrup. The rest of the syrup, 140 pounds of it, goes into the giant cauldron. Next up is sugar, and we need a lot of it. We open up the sacks. One whole bag goes into the cauldron. The pot gets less, since it's a smaller batch. Then we add water, just enough to wet the sugar. We turn the cauldron burner on full blast. This will slightly caramelize the sugar at the bottom, which gives us that deep toasted flavor and the right color. After about an hour of boiling, the mixture starts bubbling like crazy, and then disaster. The foam rises too fast and spills all over the floor. No worries, I added some extra ingredients up front, just in case we messed something up. We'll still have enough to fill the mold. Now we fire up the burner under the small pot, but keep the heat low. We want this mix to stay a lighter color. At this point, we've got two caramels cooking at the same time. It's crucial not to overcook them, so we're keeping a close eye on the thermometer. Once both batches hit 248 degrees Fahrenheit, we turn off the heat. The caramel done, but it's not gummy yet. We still need to add the gelatin. To prepare it properly, we use 3 large containers and 3 bottles of water. 2 containers get more water. And 1 gets slightly less. We're gonna be using a giant bag of gelatin. Using a scale, we measure out the exact amount. And begin whisking it into the water, while stirring constantly with a giant whisk. No clumps allowed. The entire bag goes into the 3 containers. Ready. We start with the smallest container. We move it closer to the pot. And scoop in the swollen gelatin. We transfer it to a large pot. We're just stirring, dissolving the gelatin directly into the hot caramel. It's not a fast process, but after about 40 minutes, it's done. Now we do the exact same thing for the dark mix in the big cauldron. We fill the cauldron almost to the top, so now we're trying to dissolve all the gelatin, hoping the volume shrinks just enough for the rest to fit in. The volume doesn't drop much, but we still need to add half the remaining gelatin, so we scoop out some of the liquid to make room. Now we've got the right volume. We add the rest of the gelatin and stir until it's fully dissolved. Now we've got plain unflavored gummy base. Time to add flavor. We pour 1/3 of homemade Coke flavor into the light mix, and the other 2/3 into the dark mix. Next is our pure caffeine paste. We cut it into 2 pieces, one big, one small, and drop them into each pot. To balance out the sweetness, we use phosphoric acid, the same stuff used in real Coca-Cola. We carefully measure out 1/3 of the bottle and pour it into the light mix. The rest goes into the cauldron. But adding gelatin to the dark caramel lightened its color. We need to fix that. Coca-Cola uses caramel coloring labeled E150, so we bought the same kind. We open the bottle and add a little. Time to stir the mix so everything gets evenly combined. Because of the flavoring, the light gummy turned a bit yellowish. Now let's mix up the dark gummy. Last step before pouring, skimming off the foam. The dark gummy's got a ton of a ton there. Ready for a big pour. We move the mold as close as possible to our cooking station. To make sure the gummy comes out easily later, we coat the entire mold with a food-safe grease spray. Then we install a divider right behind the Coca-Cola logo. This will keep the 2 colors separate when we pour. We start with the dark gummy. Once it reaches the divider, we start pouring the light one. The key is to keep both sides level, the whole time so they don't mix. We keep alternating, filling the both sides until the mold is full. Time to remove the divider. Unfortunately, the colors mixed. Kinda frustrating. Everything worked fine in the smaller test. Oh well, we'll leave the gummy to set. 3 days later, the gummy has finally solidified. It's thick, dense and just right texture, almost identical to store-bought gummy candy. Now we cap the mold and screw the corners tight. We're flipping the mold onto the pallet. This is super important for moving it later. We unscrew everything. Remove the frame. And raise the mold. We peel off the plastic sheeting. Now for the moment of truth, separating the silicone mold from the gummy. Success! The Coca-Cola logo looks amazing. All the details, the cup, the ridges are perfectly molded. This entire project took 10 days to complete. Let's compare our creation to the original. Unfortunately, it's not two-toned like we planned. But with that real Coca-Cola logo on it, I think it looks even better than the original. After calculating all the ingredients we used, the total weight of our giant gummy Coke bottle came out of 595 pounds. Just look how massive it is next to me. Inside this bag is total cost of the project. $1,800. Let's cut a piece and see if it tastes right. And honestly, it's about 80% accurate. Super tasty. Just a little less intense than the original candy, but the texture is spot on. Of course, we're not eating this whole thing ourselves. We're donating it to kids in need. We wrap it up for safe transport. To move this monster, we'll need a hydraulic pallet jack. To deliver it, we rented a truck with a lift gate. We're heading out! Looks like the kids are shocked in a good way. To serve it, we need a table and cutting boards. We slice off the chunk of the bottle. And cut it into bite-sized pieces. We're portioning it out. The older kids even help out with the prep. Done. Time to hand out our homemade gummy Coke candy. Looks like the kids loved it. And hey, if this video hits 100 likes, we'll deliver food from our next experiment to the kids again. See you next time.